Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Call the meeting to order at 6:30 PM.
Motion to open.
Seconded.
Do we need to do that?
We just did.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so be it.
All right.
All right, so first up, we have, I invited all the applicants to come speak about their projects. If we have any questions, we'd like to ask them. So first one up is the Groveland Congregational Church. And I received response from Robert Lay, and then, is it Pastor Donna? Yes. If you'd like to.
Make sure that's green.
It is red.
Hit the button.
And make it green. Hello. So we are excited to be getting ready to celebrate our 300th anniversary, the Groveland Congregational Church. Most people don't understand the history of how the church, in order for our town to be founded, the town people, whoever were going to create a town, had to get a petition for the governor. And the governor would then grant them permission to start a town, but there was stipulations. One was that they had to hire a minister and build a meeting house. The meeting house was not just the church, it was actually the meeting house for all civic and religious services and events. It was the centerpiece of the town. So if you go in New England, you'll see a lot of white churches in the middle of the common. That probably church is about as old as ours is. This year, we'll be celebrating the 230th anniversary of the Paul Revere Bell. And I know for this town, this is an important relic that we have as a community. And one of the reasons why we're seeking we're seeking this grant is to have our church ready for the 300th anniversary. Also, I back up a little bit. I got a little nervous. Hold on.
Happens to all of us.
Lost my train of thought. That happens too now. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I know that this church, that it is a church, and I know that it appears to be private property. It really has never been private property. The church has always been here to serve the community, and it still lives up to that mantle today. I'm very, very impressed by the thrift store that gives all its proceeds go to missions all around the North Shore and Merrimack Valley. And so we are really here for the community. And so in that, and in the celebration of our 300th anniversary, we would like to bring the clock up to date. It was built in 1853, and all wrought iron. It's a beautiful piece of equipment. Unfortunately, it is not able to be refurbished again for a number of reasons. And so we have been looking into modernizing it so that we can, once again, have carillons, which allowed music to be heard through the town on different occasions. And it also will ring the hour of the day as well. And so that's really what we're asking for, to kind of just bring everything up to date so that we can celebrate our 300th anniversary, of which we'll be inviting the whole entire community to be a part of that, just like you have invited us to be a part of your 150, how much? 175th anniversary. So we're kind of just, we're just here to do that. So I'm here for your questions, and if I can't answer them, Bob will.
How long has the clock not worked?
3 years.
3 years.
And what stopped it from working? Was it a mechanical thing, just age?
Well, 15 years ago, we had a problem with it, and it needed to be restored, so we got a guy.
Can you just go up, just so they can hear on TV?
So we had somebody 15 years ago, we had a guy out of Kittery, Maine, come down and look at the clock, and he refurbished it. To do that, he had to dismantle it, take it apart, bring it back to his shop, worked on it there, brought it back, brought it up, reassembled it, and then reconnected it. The problem that we have is what makes the bell work is the clock. And the clock has to have these big weights hanging off it, like big weights.
Like a cuckoo clock.
Yeah,
But
so
much
we
bigger.
were told by a clock guy, he said, you can't be using that anymore, it's dangerous, those weights are just gonna fall down and it'll be catastrophic. So we approached this from, we need to get the bell to work, what are our options to do that? And the clock that we have is probably $30,000 to $40,000 to refurb it again, and we just don't have the money to maintain it. That becomes easy. If you go up there, you can see it's got dust and dirt on it. We try to keep that clean, but let's face it, the steeple is kind of outdoors, you know? It's windy and dirty up there. So the real, you know, our mission here was to get the clock to ring. In order to get the clock to ring, we need to get the bell to work. So I have talked to Claire about this. We did have an idea that if this all went swimmingly, we would take the clock, which is 1883, but we would take the clock and have our clock guy, this hasn't been approved by anybody yet, but this is the idea. We take the clock apart, move it somewhere else, Washington Hall maybe, and reassemble it and make it work. So it's kind of got two things going on here. Make the bell ring, let the people, you know, enjoy the clock. Because our other option is to put it in the north ax of the church, but then the same 40 or 50 people get to see it all the time. And what's the point of that? So we've been told it could be moved, we've told it could work, freestanding. Actually put a clock face on top of it, if you wanted a clock in that hall. So this is, you know, it's an exciting project, pretty straightforward. As you know, the bell hasn't rung for years, 3 years.
How long, Bob, was the clock there working? When did it originally start?
Well, 1883.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's been there a really long time.
So it does seem to be a historic fixture of our town, right?
Both items, but certainly the bell.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, there's nothing we can do to make the bell ring without putting in a modern clock.
And so this isn't really so much a benefit to the church as much as to the town, right?
Absolutely.
Not, a couple of weeks ago, when President Carter died, our church had the funeral service, that we streamed it at our church. And as they were bringing the casket in, we rang the bell, as it had done for every president that has died since then, rang the amount of years that the president was the president. So he climbed up in 2-degree weather, and he tolled the bell, which is quite its feat itself, 39 times, and it was a very special moment. We got it out in the community. I know people probably did hear it, and if they had seen it on Facebook, they know what it was for. But that's one of the things that the bell was, the call to the community before any other kind of communications were available too. So that's kind of we want to celebrate all those kind of things too.
This might be a bit off topic, but as I understand it, it's, the bell is pretty cloistered, right? Pretty hidden away.
Yep.
Is there any way or plan or thought of making it so that the bell might be more visible, or anything you could do about it?
I could share some insight.
Yeah.
I was on the Board of Trustees when we signed an agreement with Verizon to put cellular towers in the steeple. The reason that we put louvers was twofold. One, that steeple is full of antennas. You see them when you drive around, those great big, 4-foot, whole bunch of them, the thing's full of antennas. You see the antennas.
Got it.
Number one. Number two, plexiglass, we talked about that. Kind of muffled the sound of the bell. Wouldn't look that good, you'd still see the antennas. So the option we settled for was putting louvers up there. It really, originally, the intent was to keep the acid rain off the bell. I mean, that's really why we enclosed it. But then kind of a double hit when we had all those antennas up there, so.
Sure.
If that wasn't there and you walk down to the church, you can't see the bell. You'd have to go to the top of King Street by Gardner Street to maybe catch a peek.
Right.
But you never could see it from the ground.
That's helpful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions down this end? Would you guys be opposed to putting a preservation restriction on the church if you were to get this money?
What does that mean?
So it means that you have to maintain, if, you have to maintain the bell as the bell and,
Clock.
the clock, yeah, the clock as well. And then if you were to sell the church for whatever reason, you would reimburse the town for the money?
Sure,
Yeah.
why not?
Well, that,
We're not for sale.
I understood, but
No,
That's a good question. That is a,
You know, and I understand the question, but certainly we intend to maintain it. We maintain everything we have today. It's hard. The facility is supported by about 80 members. That's it. 80 people contribute, and there is no other money for us. There's no money coming from the archdiocese. There's no money coming from anywhere. It's just us. So we have an annual meeting. In fact, we have an annual Sunday. We'll probably vote and approve a deficit budget. Don't like to say it, but it's how we've been running. And every year, we seem to make it. So we're going to be here for a long time. 300, we're just getting started.
one of the gifts is those antennas, because they are leasing that space up there. So at least we have residual income coming in we have maintenance all day long till come Sunday. There's always something to do between the parsonage and the church. So that kind of helps supplement all of that too. So they've done some really good, made some wise decisions as a church too. And what I appreciate more than anything, I've only been here a couple of years, is how much this town loves this church too. I've been out at Groveland and Groveland Days and so forth, and people talk about it as their church, and I just love that. And so, I can't iterate enough how, as you have heard me say, that this benefits the whole community and the community's antiquity. And I love Claire is we talk to Claire all the time. She gets all this, and I think that that's the biggest drive we have right now. So
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going through the timeline, and it says, the existing clock mechanism is carefully to be removed from the steeple. Who takes care of that?
David Graham.
Okay, so that does not affect the cost of this,
It's built into that.
okay?
In fact, I talked to him. Kind of excited about this. Moving expense, that would have been the $2,000 that's on here. So we don't have to hire a mover. He cautioned me, he said, you cannot get a bunch of your friends or the CPA group, go down, think you're gonna pick that thing up and get down the stairs. Have you seen the stairs?
I've
They
been up,
they just did something recently.
yeah,
It
I
was
would
on
have a look
Groveland
there after I
TV.
saw the video.
You couldn't carry that out of there. You have to dismantle it.
okay,
So he's the guy to do it. For $2,000, he'll take it apart, move it, clean it up, and make it work, reassemble it.
okay. And then, the other thing was that basically, you got the cost for the AmeriClock coming in and putting the new system in.
Yep.
But they also, in their client responsibilities, said that they will not supply a lift to access the clock.
Don't need a lift.
Okay.
There's a set of stairs that goes up there.
Oh, I know, I've been up and down it.
Yeah. We had a fire up there.
We went and looked so that what we would do in case we had a fire.
We had a fire in the steeple.
Yeah.
Was it 91?
I think.
And then,
Yeah.
the electrical wiring. It says here, client responsibility for the electrical wiring. I see electrical up there already running the hammer on the existing, on the bell.
Correct. So I put in here for electrical and internet setup, we need to have a hard connection, because there's an interface here with the clock. You could take your phone and ring the bell, or do all kinds of things. So I did talk to Steve Daniels. This is probably, could be a little high, but I don't want to be low. There is some power up there, may need a dedicated circuit, I'm not sure. But I know we need internet up there. We have wireless all over the place. Don't know if it's strong enough to run that.
Can't pick up on
This-
those cell phone antennas?
I mean, you know,
It's a good idea. I'm not going up there. You can't access that space. You'd be fried.
Okay,
Yeah, but I made sure these were, there was enough in each one of these categories. When we get down to things like we got to run a piece of, Cat 5 or Cat 6 up into that steeple, I won't hire Steve Daniels guys at, $40 an hour. We can drag that wire up there. We do most things ourselves, but there's times when you just can't or shouldn't.
and then basically you're gonna take the existing clock down and store it somewhere and rehab it. But that's not,
Yep. Yeah, so that's in
not
here.
built
That's the
into
$4,000 to dismantle it, take it out, take it to somewhere else, perhaps Washington Hall, reassemble it and make it work.
yeah, okay.
What do you expect for a timeframe? I know it says roughly about a year, but I mean, you're ready to go with this?
I think we're ready to go. I've talked to, I'm actually talking to another vendor right now, which is Electric Time. I don't know if that's popular here because they manage the clock in the center of town. But anyhow, they're the ones that do electric clocks. You see them all over the place. So I've been talking with them. They could be less than the vendor that I've already got a quote from. That's,
So if this were to get approved at town meeting in April, and you get money on July 1,
we're ready to go.
we're done by Christmas?
No, I'd say we're done by fall because we've got this all lined up. I don't know what we'd have to, drag our feet for. I don't see anything. If we had the money, I've already talked, there are only a few vendors and I've already talked to them, so.
As long as they're slim, trim installers.
Yeah. It's an interesting place.
You keep going on that stairway, you think it never is gonna end.
All right, any other questions? All right, well, I'd like to thank you guys for coming in and taking the time with us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
thanks so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, is the plan to vote on these tonight, to accept them as
Yes.
a board, and then, okay.
Yep.
Would Q and A first, and we're through all of them? and
Or
then go there,
we can do
or
them one by each, it's fine by me.
then I'll start. I'd like to make a motion to approve the Groveland Congregational Church
Seconded.
submission as a, let's see here, CPA Historic Preservation, total budget requested of $25,000 to restore, replace. There's multiple things, as the applicant has submitted. Make a motion to approve.
I would just like to amend that to say that with a preservation restriction.
Which the client said or which the proponent said they were amenable to.
All right. Any other conversation?
So I think that there's no reason why this shouldn't go forward to town meeting. It's, it's clearly historic. It meets all the requirements of CPA. So I certainly think the only thing somebody might say is, well, this is a church, why are we funding a church? And as I said before, this benefits the town. The town is really the main benefactor of it, but also it's been brought to court that we can fund projects for churches. So I don't think there's any reason to vote against it.
No, and I live right where you're saying. Personally, I have a hard time with it, but I feel like that's up to the town meeting to decide.
Yes,
The
yes.
project is a viable project, it's well put together, has attainable deadlines, all the information's there, so I feel like we should leave it in the hands of the voters. So, any other conversation?
I would also support the, putting this to town meeting. It seems that it meets the criterion that we're talking about. I'd echo some of the comments of the other board members. Certainly, getting Paul Revere's Bell up and running again seems like the kind of thing that the town should do, particularly with the caveat recommended by the chair. I think it's a lot of benefit for very, very little risk.
No other conversation, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous?
Thank you, and good luck at town meeting.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Blair.
All right. Next up, we have Claire Walsh and Mike Dempsey for 46 Washington Street. Good luck.
So at our last meeting, you tasked me with three things regarding this project when it was initially presented at our last meeting. One was, what is the building going to be used for potentially? Because the original proposal did not go into specific uses. The second thing was, who will benefit? What is the benefit to the town? What is the benefit to the residents of Groveland? And then the third thing was, what are we going to do if the building has extensive requirements that go beyond the budget as far as hazardous materials inside the building? What would we do about that? So what I did was put together an addendum here that I think you each have a copy of that answers those three questions. So just, hopefully you read it, but briefly, the goals of the project is that upon approval of the Board of Selectmen to give the Groveland Historical Society a lease to the building, they would work with the town and the CPA funds that would be voted to begin to repair the building with the idea that it would become a historic/art venue and be able to really put the building to good use. There's a little description in there about the need for art spaces. Art spaces and studio spaces don't exist in Groveland, but there is a need. We've had a study done that shows that community art space is necessary in the region, in the area. There's a waiting list for the existing studio spaces. As far as the benefit is concerned, as I said, beyond just fixing the building up and having it not look like an eyesore sitting there in the neighborhood for the neighborhood people, but also that it becomes a community space for art shows, as I said, studio spaces, and both art and history venue. And then the third thing was, what's going to happen if, for some reason, the building can't be fixed within the budget? So the first task, as I said in the original proposal, will be to evaluate the building, have it have it tested for lead and asbestos, which are probably the most common hazards that are expensive to remove. And if those hazards are going to be more than what the budget for the mitigation is, then the project would stop. We wouldn't go any further. It would be, again, this project is under the control of the town administrator, so the town administrator would stop the project, would not go any further if for some reason the estimate to take care of asbestos or lead was going to be $50,000 or $100,000. We wouldn't just spend the entire budget of the project on that. And so that would be the contingency that would be in place for the project. So beyond that, I just wanted to say that, we have this building sitting there, and unfortunately, time is not on our side. It's degrading. Right now, the town is paying to heat the building, because if we don't heat the building, it's going to continue to degrade. The masonry doesn't like going below freezing and then coming back up. So the town is, having to pay for heating the building, keeping it about 45 or 50 degrees so it doesn't freeze. And as I said, the building is sitting there basically empty. It's been empty since the water department moved out. There's no other, maybe we could use it for X, Y, Z, whatever, but there's no groups coming forward dying to use the building. So here is a proposal from the Historic Society to take the building and turn it into a good use. And by doing that, if we fund this grant, it will enable the Historic Society to pursue other grants, and I think that's like one of the most important things. So there's so many, I have like a booklet full of grants here, possibilities, but just to give you a couple, there's the Massachusetts Preservation Projects Funds. They provide matching funds up to $100,000, so you can get a grant for $200,000. And we have to provide the matching funds, which would be this grant, if it's approved. And it can help us to at least get through the initial part of it. There's another smaller grant from the Massachusetts Historic Preservation Matching Grants 1772 Foundation that also can provide matching funds. Then I've got a list of about 10 other grants that either fund art venues or art and cultural programs or historic buildings or historic venues, both state-run, such as Mass Development, but also private funds like Essex Natural Heritage, American Express, Cathay Bank Foundation, Mass Cultural Council. They all have grants, and most of these are matching grants. So it would enable the Historic Society to pursue those. Questions?
Yes, sir. Many questions, but I think this question's coming. Do you have permission from the select board to go for these funds and to use that building as described?
We will get that.
That seems out of order to me. I feel like you should have the permission before we commit to anything.
I cannot control, Claire nor I can control what the selectmen do as far as their agenda is concerned. It's on the agenda request, and so it will be addressed. And I would say, we'd have to make it a contingency again, which is certainly possible, because if we say, yes, we want to do this project, and the selectmen say, oh, no, we don't want to do this, then it doesn't go anywhere.
Adam?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I did a little research, Mike.
Yep,
Basically, the $122,000 that you're requesting is presently 87% of the assessed value of the building. And that's only to do the items that you have listed: the heating system, septic, restore masonry, environmental testing, some windows and doors, and contingency. And basically, this 122,000 would be the first phase. Now, we all got there and looked at the building over tonight, and it is in desperate need of some updating. Where you don't have, I've got a problem. You've got a septic system you want to put in, which is great, but you need to know what your occupant load of the building is. That would be determined by the building inspector. The other question I have about the septic system is, you have Rock Pond right there, which my kids took swimming lessons at. State law says you have to be X number of feet from a pond to install a system. Do you have that amount of space?
yes.
Okay. Then, we have a budget here, which is good for the environmental and testing. But there is, until you determine that, the only thing that I would be comfortable with would be to restore the masonry. Because that should not be affected by any environmental hazards. But until you get an occupant and put together a budget for leveling the floors, replacing the electrical system, replacing the HVAC system, and everything else, those numbers could go into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And there's 3 items, according to the building inspector, that trigger what division of the building code it comes under. If it's a restoration, that's 1 division. If it's a remodel, that's a 2nd division. And if it's a full update, that's a 3rd division required under the building code. And if you're getting into the 2nd and 3rd one, you're talking sprinkler system. And then the other thing is, with what you determine for a building load, I talked to the building inspector. He says you can't use the attic because of the beams. You do not have enough head height. So what you've got is the first floor, which is 1,512 square feet, and then you have the basement.
Yes, and the proposal only talks, this proposal that's being submitted only talks about using the basement and the ground level floor. It doesn't
Yeah.
talk about using the attic.
All right. Then there was another question that was brought up by building inspector is, what you have for an occupancy load, you have to have parking spaces for. And right now, it's only 7/10 of an acre. Minus, you take out the footprint for the building. And the town and all their committees cannot issue more parking spaces. It would have to be done by the state. And then the other thing is, to redo this building, it has to be approved by the state as a historical site.
Well, I don't know about that for
I
sure,
read
but
it-
certainly.
I went and looked up
You-
the
I don't-
website that Mr. Stewart had, and I read for hours in it, and it's detailed right in there.
I don't understand what you're saying. So, you're saying that unless it's on the National Historic Registry, you can't work on it. Is that what you're saying?
What
Because
they're-
that doesn't-
What they're indicating is you can't use historic preservation funds unless it's on the site, on,
But that's not a requirement of what the CPA historic funds are. So I don't know about that. I mean,
okay, well,
that
maybe
doesn't,
maybe I haven't got it clear.
yeah, I don't know. That doesn't seem to make sense, but, you know, I don't know. Obviously, you know, we could check into that, but,
I would be in favor of stabilizing the masonry. You've got an existing heating system that seems to be working, it was adequate tonight, and it's only in the 20s out. But if you're gonna get into making an upgrade so that it could be occupied by artists and stuff like that, I mean, it has to have 2 handicap bathrooms, men's and women's. It has to have a sprinkler system, it has to have a new electrical system. And you're looking at half, $750,000.
could be. So I just want to address what you asked about parking. That parcel abuts town property. It's a 6-acre parcel there. So certainly the select board could allow parking on that
Part of
parcel.
Strawberry Field?
No, no, it's 6 acres that are directly, if you go down,
And you go over the bridge?
no, if you go down the bottom of the building there and you
Yeah.
go to the left, that's all town-owned property there.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, but, yes, no question that it's going to take more money to make this place useful. And so, you know, that was part of the reason for putting the proposal in this way, is because the things that need to be done with this proposal would need to be done with anything. We aren't attempting to address things like electrical, plumbing, et cetera, because by funding this grant, it will enable us to pursue other grants, private grants, because otherwise, the only choice that the Historic Society has to do is to ask for the $500,000 or $750,000 from CPA funds. But I think the Historic Society's goal would be to, as soon as this fund, if it were approved at town meeting, is to start pursuing other grants to be able to address the internal
Can I-
work that need to be done.
Can I ask you a quick question on those other grants? I'm looking at
Sure.
one you have in here for 1772 matching grants. It's in the application.
Yes,
And it says applicants must be private 501c3 organizations, towns and municipalities, as well as active churches and schools, and not eligible to apply.
well, that one may or may not be,
Wasn't that the one that was up to $100,000?
no, this one's the 1772 one is a very small grant. That only matches up to $10,000. The Massachusetts Preservation Projects Fund is the other one that's up.
Is that in the application?
They're two different things. No, it's not in the application.
Now, is that the one I had read in the website, that a lot of these grants, which sound great,
Yeah, and, well, they're
town has-
competitive.
but the town has to match the funds.
Yes, so they would match
If-
our
if
CPA
grant
fund.
ABC gives the town $100,000, then the town accountant has to write a check for $100,000 to match it.
No, these funds could be used to match whatever funds we got from a grant.
I'm confused.
So the CPA funds.
CPA funds are town funds, I think, is what
Yeah.
he's
And
saying.
that would be what they would match.
Yes. Obviously, if we were applying for grants to do the internal part of the building, you know, let's say we need $500,000, we would have to write another CPA proposal to at least come up with whatever was required to match. not all of them are 50% match, some are less, so, you know. But rather than have to only pursue CPA funds, because that's really, you know, what the easiest method is, let's just fund it, the whole thing with CPA. I don't think the Historic Society wants to do that.
What I think the board, and, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, board, and I are having trouble with is the concept of doing this sort of halfway. So either, you know, we could do it, if you were amenable, to the outset parts, like, can this building be used at all? Do the environmental study and things like that to see if it's even feasible to do this. I know you said, well, we could stop it at any time, but if we were clear that this was a feasibility, you know, monies were being spent for that purpose, and we knew that the result of those monies would be to tell us if the project was feasible, then that seems like the kind of thing that would be, would be amenable.
Kind of jump on with that. If we were given money to do you know, mitigate the hazards or test it, environmental hazards, see what's there, but more a full design for what it's going to be and to get an actual price. I want to know what my all-in price is. I don't want to throw 150 grand at it this year and 150 grand next year and maybe 300 grand the year after and maybe another 200 grand after that. I'd like to know what we're signing up to before we spend a nickel on it, if we're being honest.
Yeah, well, you know, I get what you're saying. I think that
That doesn't preclude
you
us
may
from,
need to do that anyway, you know what I mean?
Well, and this all goes back to, too, if the select board's even amenable to this, they may say, no, we want to sell the place. And then what? Then they sell the place, and I guess,
Then we don't spend the
then we
money.
don't spend the money. But what,
Right.
you know,
but an $8,000 project is much more easy to be palatable at town meeting than a $120,000
Yeah.
project where we don't know.
But-
We don't have a you know, a kind of top balanced number. And the other piece is, I don't know if, you know, doing the minimum amount precludes you from seeking grants if the result comes back, yeah, we can do it. Yeah, here's a plan for what the building will look like. It is amenable to, you know, to SAM, say, and, you know, everybody seems to be conceptually on board with what the footprint of the building could look like. This is what the parking is going to look like. This is what, you know, like a full-on plan of this is how we're going to do it. And maybe also some projected financials about what the revenue that would come back, or what we would project the revenue to come back with from the use. So if we scale back the project to, hey, do the feasibility study, maybe fix the masonry if, you know, maybe.
I'll jump into my 30 years of construction experience. That building's not going anywhere if we wait another year, 5 years to deal with that masonry. It's superficial at best. It's not structural by any stretch of the imagination.
So,
What do you think a ballpark number for an architect to analyze and develop a plan, have a professional estimator put it together and present it back?
yeah, you're talking about the whole thing, right? Both outside and inside, everything that this project
Everything that will
involves.
accomplish putting your arts people in.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Do you have a number for that?
No, I don't, but, you know, that kind of makes sense, because just funding the hazard testing really doesn't get us anywhere. If we wanted to do that, you know, probably Rebecca could find some money to pay for testing. You know.
No, we couldn't.
You know, so it really doesn't go anywhere. But if we were to fund, you know, say, all right, you don't want to do anything now, but we want to know how much it could cost to make it completely useful, yeah, you know, we'd have to spend perhaps, you know, 40 grand on an architect.
See,
So are
I-
you willing to do that? You know, to me, I
support-
think
I
that
can
kind of
support
makes
that.
sense.
I can't support this presently.
I think I could also get on board with the concept of doing the environmental work and then putting together what an as-built plan might look like so that we would have a much better idea what an all-in number would be. And if it's feasible and if it's not.
I'm struggling with the fact that the select board may not even be interested in this.
Well,
Well, if-
let's,
If they're not, does it get to town meeting anyway?
no, it shouldn't go forward unless the selectmen are behind it, because they're the controlling board of the building itself. As far as CPA is concerned, they don't have to approve the CPA project, but they do need to say, if the select board said, no, we don't want this project to go forward, we're not going to allow that stuff to be done on the building, you couldn't do it.
So could we add a caveat to the proposal that says that it doesn't go to town meeting unless and until the select board gives a thumb up for this
This
component,
use.
this component of the proposal?
I want to make sure they're on board for the use of it, and I mean, this should be, and it's on the select board to do it, but there should be a study done as to whether that's even what the town wants, if they agree with your use, or what else that building could be used for, potentially what kind of revenue it could bring in, if they want to do affordable housing there. There's a million different things they could do with that building. And to kind of pigeonhole them into, we're going to make art space, I'm not comfortable with it. I feel like this conversation should have been had before this project was even developed.
It has. The select board had talked about it 3 years ago, but they haven't made a decision about it.
Ed,
It's
do
kind
you
of,
have any input on the select board stance on this?
No, no, we don't. I know it's been brought up, like Mike said, like 3 years ago, and they didn't determine a use for it. It was just discussed.
so, Adam, if you want to, and I think Claire probably would agree, if you wanted to instead change the project to just pay for an architect, we'd have to come up with a number, pay for an architect to develop a plan, which would include, have to go into what was the use. We could do that.
Could we make it contingent on getting approval from the select board that this use would be approved if?
You'd have to, because there's no
You-
sense of spending
I
45
don't,
of any money without.
I don't want to do anything. This is where I'm standing right now. I mean,
Well, a minute ago, you were okay with the environmental study.
Yeah, but-
To see if it could be used,
but if.
for any
if it's-
purpose.
But if the town's not interested in keeping the building, or if they're gonna, if they decide to sell off the building, I don't even want to spend that $6,000 on the environmental study.
So put a caveat on the approval to say that before $1 is spent, it needs to be approved by the select board for the use.
I'd be amenable to that.
Adam,
Yes.
we have somebody in the audience who would like,
Yeah.
okay.
But I think that might make sense. The approving the architect and the environmental study, subject to the
Well-
condition that the select board is amenable to the project going forward as art space.
Or or whatever architecturally fit.
Sure.
They may determine that, yeah, that's an idea, but it doesn't really fit.
Yeah, no, that's fine. If there's select board approval to the concept of the refit,
I look at
I could
this-
get on board with those two things, the architect and but it's subject to.
No, and I understand that, but I'm not, I look at this, and then I think back to Stuart's presentation a few months ago, and this is just clearly a project that is not ready to move forward. There's just too many unknowns, and I don't want to sit here during a meeting and try and spitball a project back together just to do something. It's clearly not ready. It needs to be sent back to the drawing board. The approvals need to come first with an actual number for an architect. If you try and get an architect to give you a quote to design that space in 2 or 3 weeks before we got to present this to the select board and vote on it to get it on the warrant, it's just not enough time to do the right due diligence.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Claire, when the community center that has been restored,
Washington.
Washington Hall,
yes, that had been left empty.
over 25 years,
So-
boarded up.
So thinking back on that property, I'm not saying it's the same level, I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. Did you start with like an engineer to test the
I,
load, to?
I had an architect look at the building, Doug Mund, who used to live
Oh,
in
yeah,
town.
yeah.
And he did historical buildings. And he said it was definitely worth doing. He said it's structurally sound. He
Okay,
he crawled into the crawl space,
all right.
wanted me to go, but I decided not to.
So that
Wise
is,
move.
so that is how that came about, or how it started?
I'm
An
sorry?
architect actually assessed,
He actually, he said, you know, this is worth doing. And, you know, the inside of the building was a wreck. And was the outside as well. Had been boarded up all those years, and it just needed everything done. So and CPA had just started
I bought it.
at that time, so we had to go through increments, you know. So it was kind of a different project than this,
Right.
because, you know, the building's there, and, you know,
Took me
there's money in
Saturday
CPA
and I
now.
did it.
I just was trying to listen to what he was saying, and I was a little
well,
distracted.
Okay.
Sorry about
Basically,
that.
I was the scoutmaster of Troop 88 when we used to use the Washington Hall. And then when that went to the wayside, the town approached me, and I was the one that the town paid me to board up all the windows to keep it from animals and breakage.
Well, there were plenty of animals in that building, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah, well, that was through the edge of the roof, so.
So even if the town were going to sell the property, it would be useful in that process to know whether you could use it for something or something along those lines. So I would say that even at a minimum, it would be reasonable for the board to approve the environmental testing and to suss out what the remediation would cost. Let's say we don't even agree to an architect at this point, but I could get on board a $7,000 project that says, hey, let's assess if this thing is even something that we can fix and put together. And then maybe in that next year, they can put together a plan that's comprehensive and approved by the select board and things like that. But even if the town is going to sell that property, that would still be information that a buyer would want to know anyway.
They're going to want to do their own due
Well,
diligence and their own
maybe,
testing.
maybe so, but I mean, you know, I could see that it would be helpful information either way. So would you be amenable to cutting back the proposal to just doing the environmental testing and then using the next year to try to get the select board on board with, you know, a more comprehensive and detailed project?
The problem is that you really do need an architect to look at it, for what you want. We can't, I don't think Claire can come back with a plan that some of you are gonna be happy with unless an architect says, yeah, this is what it's gonna be done and this is how much it's gonna cost. So I think Claire and I would say, yeah, you know, you wanna throw out this project as submitted and you wanna just fund the hazardous mitigation and a certain amount of money towards an architect, then that kind of makes sense to me. I prefer this, but I think that would work. I'd rather see that than just saying it's not worth doing anything.
Right.
So, you know, if the board is willing to say, all right, and yes, we don't have an architect, but I mean, nobody brought this up before, so it's kind of hard to, you know, if that was brought up before, we could have maybe got a price on an architect. But, you know, I'd say if we say, you know, $12,000, we could do the mitigation testing and hire an architect to come up with a plan.
All right, I just want to recognize Brian. He's got a comment he wants to make.
Why don't you come up and?
How you doing? Brian Lynch, 7 Star Road. Couple things. I totally agree the cart's ahead of the horse here. The Board of Selectmen have care and custody of this property. It should be up to them to determine if they want projects to move forward on a piece of property. To me, it's no different than if I came to you tonight and said, I want to put some lights up at the Pines on the ball field. It's like, it's ridiculous. Until the Board of Selectmen are on board with something, I think it's that's the direction it should go. Also, no matter what, for the town to develop that property, the return on investment would be abysmal, and, whether or not we need more culture in town or what have you, I don't know. But what I do know is this town is not flush with cash. So for us to be the benefactor for something like this, I just think it's the wrong thing at the wrong time. So, personally, if it was up to me, I'd say the town sells a surplus property. I mean, that way you get a return on your investment. You get $250,000 for the lot, and you get $12,000 a year in taxes. So, that being said, I just think it's way too premature to even think about it. To put even $8,000 into it, if the selectmen say no down the road to the next proposal, I mean, you can't nickel and dime it. We throw $120,000 at it, and then we find out that it's not going to work out. Well, we're out $120,000, and it's sitting in a still vacant building. So those are a couple of problems I have with it. Also, if you look at Phase 1, that was done under recreation when Selectman Castronellis proposed it. And part of her thing was for a future phase to rehabilitate the historic brick structure into a home, possibly for the recreation department. Her whole motivation on the thing was recreation, So I think that Phase 2 has nothing to do with Phase 1 at this point, so it's kind of, gone off the rails a bit there. But again, I just think that putting any money into that building until there's a definitive plan is just throwing good money after bad. I would just, as a citizen, rather not see any of that happen until there's more direction, and that direction comes from the Board of Selectmen, because they have care and custody of the property. So that's, I guess, all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ed?
Just a couple questions, Mike. You mentioned about the fact that it could be used for arts and cultural. Well, that's the same thing that they were looking at redoing the cottage up at VZ Park for artists and cultural. Is there that much need in this town for this old mill building and up at VZ Park for the arts, artists to lease space?
Well, there is a need in the region. I mean, nothing exists in Groveland, so obviously it just, whatever opens up first will be taking advantage of it. But regionally, that study that was done for Lucille's Cottage there indicated that there's a huge amount of need for artist space, artist venues, studios. So, yes.
Next question, Kim brought up about the septic system. And you said that it's far enough away from the wetlands area. Is that as it stands now, or if, I know we had talked before, the plans were to resurrect the old swimming hole down there in some way. If that was resurrected, would it be far enough away from the building?
Yes, well, the only requirement is 100 feet. So the current system is approximately 250 feet from the edge of the pond. So, if worst case, they had to take up the old system and replace it with the new, it's definitely within, outside of the 100-foot buffer.
Okay. When you're talking about the environmental testing and abatement, in the proposal was $6,500 for that.
Yeah.
Does that include the grounds as well as the building itself?
Well, I think that, the interior of the building potentially could have asbestos, could have lead. The exterior of the building, no, didn't include that, but usually, again, the testing portion of it, and I think the 6,500 really is just to do testing. So I think that all of that could be done with $6,500 or far less than that.
Because that's right in the area of the old Valley Screw, which, at where the old dam was,
Yeah.
where the swimming hole was, there was a test pit that was
Yeah.
not that far away.
Yeah.
So you're not concerned about any environmental hazard on the property itself, the exterior of the building?
No, because, only because of EPA saying that the site next to it is clean, so I think we kind of have to go with that. I mean, obviously, nobody really could give us 100% guarantee unless you started, testing all around it. But I think that according to their whole goal, that they did clean up the site, so hopefully there's not a problem there.
Well, follow-up question on that.
Sure.
On that comment. It was a year ago, we talked about the purchase of the building out behind
Yes.
the Valley Screw.
Right.
But yet, if the town purchased that, then at that time, you couldn't even put an irrigation system in the lawn if it was drawing groundwater or water from the property. So that would tell me that, if the federal government or the state government, I don't know whether it was the EPA or the state, said you couldn't do that. You couldn't use the property for anything. And so, but that's only right next door, and yet it flowed downhill. So, I just have questions about that. But the other one, which I always bring up, ongoing maintenance for the building will continue to be provided by the town. At some point, I know I've mentioned it before, at some point, it reached the saturation point where we don't have enough employees. So the ongoing maintenance, it doesn't look like they've been doing any ongoing maintenance at that property at all. But at what point do we need to add people, maybe to the highway department, to maintain these buildings? Is it, and mention when Stuart Signer mentioned that you can't use CPA funds for maintenance. So the cost there would be the town would have to hire an additional worker perhaps at some point, not only salary, vacation time, sick time, and retirement benefits. So you can't keep putting all these projects, and every single one that would, I think was last year, ongoing maintenance by the town, or by the highway department, I think is the way it was. But it's reaching a point where they can't do the work that they have right now.
Well, as the town grows, we're not going to stop growing. Unfortunately, the town is going to have to figure that out. That's kind of beyond the scope of this proposal or this committee. It's really in the hands of the select board to really determine how they manage maintenance of all the town buildings. It's already a town building, so we're not taking on anything new. It's something that the town has, it may or may not be maintaining. But, really, like I say, as the town grows, it's going to have to figure out how to maintain the infrastructure of our town, this building being among that. But even if this building didn't exist, that problem still exists. So, I can't really answer what the...
We put in the rail trail, and there was supposed to be volunteers to maintain the edges and of the rail trail.
Yeah.
And that never happened.
Well, we'll hear from...
Let's keep it on topic. We got enough stuff to do.
That was all that I had, I think. But I do think that, the environmental testing, that ought to be done on the soil out in the back also.
That could be done. But that particular parcel is not, EPA does strange things when they spend money to clean things up. And this property was not part of what was cleaned up, so it has no restrictions on it.
So, Mr. Chair, I have a couple short questions, I think. First statement is, the act of the board is we need to work for the people and who we are all representing, right? So the main thing is the CPA funds have to be used appropriately. The CPC has to make that determination. Our first and foremost things that we need to make sure of, and it says here in our plan, the CPC outline guidelines, right? Does it meet the comprehensive plan, right? So does this meet what we want to do in the future for the town? I think that any growth in the town kind of meets that, right? I think if we meet that requirement, this project in particular, up in the air, right? But we're here to expand the town, help it grow, and this would be a project that would do that, right? We have a building that's not being used that we would have either, whatever the use is for. We need to, obviously, I feel it needs to be approved by the select board to figure out whether they want to use it or are they going to sell it, whatever. I think that decision. As far as the application, it is under historic preservation. Does this building meet that? I don't know. What makes this building historic to go under historic preservation? I don't know what year it was built. I don't know if I didn't require, but does it meet the criteria of a historic restoration? I don't know. Does it make it?
So if it's not on the state registry of historic places, if the Historical Society in town deems it historically significant, then it meets it, which they did at their last meeting, deemed it historically significant.
The commission did.
Okay. So it meets that criteria. Do we know what the current cost of that building is to the town right now? Do we know what is being spent on a regular annual basis to maintain it? Because the heat has to stay on all winter long.
Got the
right?
heat on, lights, there's lights on the outside of the building.
The windows are single pane, the garage doors are not insulated. I mean, it's obviously a cost.
Sure.
So my thought originally was, does doing these upgrades add value to the building?
I would argue probably not. Well, depending.
Or minimal?
Minimal at best.
I don't know, right? But that's just a question I would throw out there, does it gain any value just by doing the bare minimum to it? Windows, septic, things that will probably have, if the town decides to sell it, they don't have to do any of that, right? That's on whoever's purchasing it. But does it add value to the selling price at the same time, right? That's just throwing things out there, right?
I think they're all valid questions, and I think they all need to be answered.
And I think that's my point, right? We are throwing out ideas of
I just don't.
giving small amounts of money, but having a contingency.
I can't really get behind that. The project is not ready. There's too many unknowns. Whether the select board even gets behind it or not, we're sitting here wasting everybody's time talking about a project that the select board may say, nah, I'm all set. So, I mean, we could sit here all night and go what ifs and make contingencies and if this, then that, if this, then that. And we can do that till the sky turns blue.
Well, this is for advancing proposals to town meeting, and basically to decide whether we as a board think it's appropriate for the people of town to vote on it. Is it important enough, is it whatever we advance and say yes, we're saying, okay, the people of Groveland should decide whether this makes sense or not. We're not giving final approval to anyone.
No, well, I'm just saying it's nowhere near even asking.
That's the building.
Well, it might be.
There's not a convincing story to sell this.
Well, okay, that's your position, and we've heard it. But there are other positions that, could be equally reasonable. And one of them is what I would advance, which is to say that whether the board wants to sell this property, rehab it, do whatever, it makes some sense to find out if there's an environmental problem that really changes the game one way or the other. And so I would I would be on board with the concept of doing the environmental testing. Maybe not even remediation, just the testing to see, we're all talking about we'd like more information. This is more information. It's cheap to get, and it would help whether the town wants to sell this place or rehab it or do nothing with it. So that's something that, if the applicant wants to amend their proposal to do just that and give a cost for just that, that would be something I could get on board with. To advance that to town meeting.
All right, well, I'm going to make the motion to reject this project based on too many unknowns.
So if you reject it, does that mean that it's dead in the water?
As it's presently.
Circle back next year. I think it's a good project. The building's beautiful. The brickwork is gorgeous. Something deserves to be done with that building, but there's just too many unknowns and too many what-ifs to even
And
to
have-
take it any further for me.
And to have the assessment like was just presented as far as the environmental testing, just alone to do that. That's something.
I mean, to me, if the select board decides they don't want that property and they want to sell it, whoever's going to purchase that is going to do their own testing, so it's not money well spent in my eyes. I understand that if the town does want to do something with it, that's information that could be helpful. But if the town doesn't want to do anything, and this goes back to we don't know what the select board wants to do with the property, then to me, that's a waste of $7,000. Be it a small amount, it's,
So,
Still taxpayer money.
so Ed, as far as like on the select board, is there any way that, I mean, and I don't even know if this is a possibility, to seek some kind of position from them in terms of whether or not, like what their thoughts are regarding the building, and then come back to us with that
It could be-
response, and then.
It could be put on the agenda to bring it up again. I know it was done 2 or 3 years ago. And see what the intentions are. And it
Because-
probably was the same.
Well,
If they did go forward with it, then I don't know if we could bring it back,
Well, it would be helpful information for the town, for the select board to know whether there's an environmental problem on the site. And that would help influence their decision about whether they would keep it, sell it, rehab it, or do nothing. So I disagree vehemently about it's money not well spent. It's providing information that's going to be critical to deciding what the use of this property is going to be. If we're going to be intelligent and try to get facts before we make decisions, one of the most critical facts is there an environmental problem here that forestalls all of this? And, that we would want to get this out of our town ledger right away because there's nothing we can do with it
I would think that the select people would like to know.
They would
The select
wanna
people
know
would
that,
like
I
to know
think.
that too.
before they make a decision about it without that information.
Right, so it almost seems like, and I don't know if that's possible, that if it could get on the docket and have a response one way or the other, so we'll know whether or not we can even fund that one piece.
Right.
Adam?
yes.
Just a question for Mike. If we, do you have enough time to come back with some of these suggestions, like the environmental study, to resubmit? You have time to resubmit, or take the, most of the stuff out? And I'm not sure that you do?
No, probably not.
No, you don't think you can get it?
That's what I was gonna say. I think that our timeline here is too short for anything because town meeting is April 20-something, and everything would have to be finalized before, the date. Rebecca, it's early April, it can't be last minute, right? So everything's
When
submitted.
the warrants are due, yeah. It's
It has to be
beginning of March.
beginning of March.
So
Right.
we're out of time.
So we're stuck. What we have here is what we have here. To amend anything and be able to have it in time for town meeting, I think is not gonna happen.
Again, and I'm not.
And especially to get a consensus on maybe the board, maybe I'm speaking out of turn, is to figure out what the select board wants to do first. We know we can't vote on anything until the select board makes a decision, and I see it highly doubtful that the select board is gonna be able to make a decision prior to anything. I don't even know if it's gonna be on a meeting prior to the April, we don't know, right? It's already been, that's what makes it difficult there, the timeline. We're very short on time, so making adjustments does the board feel as though paying for a research, and whether it's the testing or whatnot, and just making that only, I don't know. It's really up in the air.
I guess the first question is the applicant amenable to doing that first and amending their proposal to say, okay, right now, we're only going for just the testing, and we think it'll cost about this much? You're the applicant.
No, well, actually, it's.
To the chair, but to the chair's point is whether it's $7,000 or not. If the the select board come
There
back
is a
and
motion
say.
on the table.
Correct. If the select board say.
It's not been seconded.
We don't,
Yeah.
if the select board says we do not want to do anything with this, then the 7,000, it would have to be contingent on what their decision is. And that's where I go back to, I don't see how making the contingencies and the time frame that we have for the April meeting is going to ever happen. I don't know how that works.
No, it
so my
would work.
point-
It would work, see, because normally the next step is we go and we present these proposals to the select board, the finance board. So this will go before the select board at their next meeting or the meeting after that, before they vote on the closing the warrant. So there is time, you know, we bring, say it was limited to just that. We bring it to the select board and say it was voted, but we're curious whether you approve this or not. And so then they'd have to take a vote to approve it or not.
Well, and that's the normal process of the town warrant and the town meeting anyway.
Yeah.
All the boards weigh in on whether they're in support or against the particular proposal. So say we voted to do just the testing, which I think will be a valuable tool for the select board to make a decision about what they might want to do, right? They come back, they're obligated to say something about it before the town meeting, meaning we're either in support of this, so you know their answer, or we're against it. So then the people of Groveland will say, well, the town board doesn't even want it. So this is, I'm going to make a motion
You
to,
gotta finish
Well,
his motion that's still on the table. Have to
it's-
close that out.
okay,
If
well,
it's not, we have to.
it's not been seconded.
Correct. Well, that's, you have to ask for a second.
So
All right, is there a second on the motion to reject?
Second.
Seconded by Kim. Let's call for a vote. All those in favor of rejecting the project as it stands now? 3, all right.
So that's 3, 4, and,
Yep.
okay, all right. So then I would make a motion to approve just the amount,
6,500.
6,500, for testing on the site to determine whether it has environmental problems or not, and whether that can go forward.
Sorry, we can have discussion after, dude.
Sure.
I'll second that motion, but I'd like to also make an amendment to give the, what do we call it? Adjustments of a 10% contingency to make it 7,000 even, just in case of pricing.
Like an overrun?
I know it's at 6,500, but there was a little bit of give a contingency at 10%,
Yeah.
so we just make it 7,000. And obviously, you said the contingency of whether the board approves.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm amenable to that, those two.
Okay.
All right,
Adam?
so,
I agree with down the other end, but the point is, if you're gonna test the site, to bring in a drill rig and take samples, you're talking a couple $1,000s. Now to blow that $6,500.
Well, so it's not required that all the money be used. This is just the top end in the event that, things are more expensive than they're supposed to be.
I feel like Kim's saying it's not enough.
Oh, you're saying it's not enough?
No, nowhere near.
But the applicant must have got pricing, right?
Not for exterior testing, only for interior.
Exterior of the building, like the trim, would be tested, but doesn't test the ground. I didn't,
I don't think we need to do that. are they requiring the house that's on the right side of the property? Do you think that the people that buy that house are gonna require that it be tested because it's right next door to the Valley Screw? I don't think so.
So if the board is going to have to approve this, right? The select board?
Right, that's
So if
what,
they don't approve it,
then
then
it
it's
doesn't go forward anyway.
not going to go forward. So it's almost like,
So I'll move the motion forward as amended by DJ, and seek, and ask, and so you've seconded it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So can we have a vote on that?
Yeah.
Well, is there any more conversation on it?
Yeah, of course.
Or- All right, I guess we'll take a vote. So, you can take a vote to approve $7,000 for environmental testing at 46 Washington Street in lieu of the rest of the project, which is the original $6,500 budget with a 10% contingency and contingent upon the select board approving the use of the building as stated as art space.
Or, well, actually, in this case.
Approving
we
just
have
the
to
testing.
approve-
The select board approving the concept that it be tested.
Yeah.
That they use any use of the building.
Yeah.
It could be any use.
Any use of the
Right.
building.
use.
Right.
It could be if it's
All right,
sales.
I just want to make sure I get it.
No, no, no,
I know
no.
what you're doing, yeah,
No, I
absolutely.
understand.
All right, so $6,500 plus 500 contingency. Based on,
I think it's better coming out of the CPA funds than it is coming out of the general fund
Yeah,
of the town
sure,
having to pay
sure.
for it.
based on select board approving.
Unless Rebecca wants to add it on to the general fund. Yeah, all right, no problem.
Nah. Use of building. All right, I will call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Ed? You? Yeah, all right, boom, unanimous, done.
Great.
All right, on to the next one. Trail Enhancement Project,
Oh, boy.
Mike and Patrick.
Okay. Like, do you want to pass out
I'll
those?
pass these out.
All right.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I know that the vote count didn't matter with who was here, but
thank you.
are the applicants allowed to vote on their own project?
Oh, yeah.
They are allowed to vote on their own project? Seems kind of strange.
I wouldn't, if it were my project, I
It
don't
would be
think I
strange-
would.
Yeah, it would be strange that, of course, you're gonna say yes, right?
No,
Yeah.
No,
Right?
He was actually going to second my motion to scrap it.
I wanted to be done.
Okay, let me know when you guys are ready.
More chairs? Get that many more people coming in? Excited?
The CPA meetings are always the best ones.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Tried to tell him at the finance board last week, didn't believe me. All right, so
guys ready?
take it away.
All right, Patrick Molina, 7 Savory Lane, also the head of the Recreation Committee. So I am co-sponsoring this project with Mike Dempsey. What we're trying to do is add some infrastructure to the trails. Groveland folks love their trails. We like being a small town. We like having places where people can get out and about. And while there's some consternation about some of the ancillary things that happen with the rail trail, people love it, people use it. It's always packed on a Saturday, right? So we are proposing to add some infrastructure, including dog waste receptacles, benches, trail markers. There are 6 trails that we're working on right here, and I believe Mike has given you a breakdown of what specific infrastructure at which specific trail. So the concept here is that where possible, we're trying to have these trails be stewarded by local volunteers. So The question's going to come from Ed pretty soon about how we're going to maintain these things. And so we're gonna, hit that question in the bud. And the idea is, generally speaking, it's going to be the folks who are going to be the stewards that are going to be picking up the trash and switching out the bags and things like that, right? Now, the one exception to that, or there are two exceptions to that, actually. One is the rail trail, which, for whatever reason, the town has agreed to have the highway department handle that, and that's just how it is. What we're trying to do to make things easier is the placement of waste receptacles and things like that we're going to try to put them on streets, so it's not like, it's not onerous to get in and get out and all that stuff. So it's just you're swiping by and grabbing things. So it's an ongoing process, and it'll probably take a couple years to get from stem to stern. But it's something that will be welcome. It's something that will make everything a little bit better. There is, now there's one really nice trail that we have, but the idea is that ultimately we'll have 6. And so at VZ Park, the maintenance is done by paid staffers, VZ Park folks. So that's how the maintenance gets done there. And on the other 4 trails, it would be the local stewards. I believe, what's the one? Forest we've got somebody from Nichols that's handling that. But ultimately, the concept is that we're adding some nice infrastructure to make these trails better. I can also add that last year when we had Groveland Day, we had volunteers come by and talk to us about, hey, are you willing to come in the spring and do some work? And we had some really good volunteers. Collins came by and said, I have some things that could help clear a trail, And so there are folks that are happy to help, and we had a really good response. So I think as far as making these things nicer, if we can put some infrastructure, we're going to get some people to do the elbow grease, and it should be a really good situation. We'll be able to give you periodic updates as we go, but this should be a no-brainer. This is something where one of the primary goals of the town is having outdoor space that people can really use, and making these trails nicer is 100% in that goal. Questions?
So this is materials only, all the work is done by volunteers?
All the work is done by volunteers with the exception of the rail trail, which that's the highway department handles that.
Okay.
That was a town negotiation.
Yep, fair.
Oh, and also the VZ Park is VZ Park employees.
Would you be amenable to breaking this down into each trail system as a separate project?
I think,
Just for tracking wise?
I mean, I would be happy to provide the periodic reports broken down by what's done that way. I think it's good to keep this as an omnibus project because there's a lot to do, and we want to maintain the standards across each thing. So we want the benches to be put in by the same person. We want we want to have uniformity in the way we put this infrastructure in, so, one trail doesn't look different than the other, and so if we're gonna be putting things in, we'd like to put them in all at the same time, so it's, again, so everything is done, it's not piecemeal.
And what's your time frame?
It's gonna vary, and I think depending on, the way and the nature in which the volunteerism comes is gonna, have some factor in that. I think it'll be easier to get things done on the rail trail and on VZ Park because we've already, and the forest, because we've already got people in place. It might take a little longer with some of the other projects. Those first couple that I mentioned are a little more, done, so, it may take a little more work to get into some of the other ones. So we want to have some flexibility based on like how things shake out when we get boots on the ground.
No, I agreed. I guess that's kind of why I felt that maybe breaking them up might be.
I think reporting wise, we can say, okay, in this how you wanted monthly or bi-monthly reports or whatever, like when we report back, we can say, this is what we did on this one, this is what we did in that one. But I think it's good to have flexibility that if one trail costs more than the other, that we're not, playing around with little dollars this way and little dollars that way. I think it's better to have all this in one omnibus plan.
And can you explain to me the kiosk and what that is?
So at the end, have you been on the rail trail? At the Main Street end, there is, I think that's what we're talking about, right? Like the
map, the
the
sign.
historical little map and things. Is that what you were, when you were talking about a kiosk?
There's a kiosk on the entrance to Meadow Pond on Uptack Road. It's kind of a wooden structure that's built. It's got,
Just like a sign and a map?
yeah, kind of, and has way to put, any of the directions there that you need, be trail maps, maybe a place to store the trail maps.
Okay, and volunteers are building these?
Yes.
Reach out. I like doing that stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's one of those things, and one of the other reasons that we want them together is so that we have standards be unified. So, when we're teaching the people how to build the various things, it's gonna look the same throughout, and that's gonna look good for the town. The town's gonna, when this infrastructure is complete, you'll know it's a Groveland trail because it looks like the other Groveland trails.
Any other questions? I feel like I'm hogging the floor.
I got one question.
Bring it.
On your budget, you've got $24,000 for lumber.
Yep, that's for building trail signs and building kiosks and building whatnot. It gives us a lot of flexibility to make sure that if we need, whatever we need, we've got. We're not gonna have to come back and ask for more.
You also have bridges too like
Right.
I know Meadow Pond has bridges
Sure.
and they rot, so.
How many bridges are we building?
What did we say? I think it's like 3 or 4, right?
Yeah.
I suppose I could count.
Because the school used to,
3.
so we used to build stuff for them, so.
No, it's okay, I should know. 1,
Looks like 4.
3, 4,
there you go.
5.
There's 3 in
This
Meadow
would have been
Pond.
awesome. This is very helpful. The map with we're gonna put this here, there, and there.
No, 100%. This is why we talked about it and set it up.
Yeah, you got 5 bridges on Meadow Pond.
No, but only
3 new ones.
three replacements,
Or-
and the other one's at Town Forest.
What is the notice of intent permit filings for the wetlands, wetland scientist fee? What are they doing? I see the application in here as well. What do they get $5,000 to do?
In order to get a permit for those bridges, we are gonna have to file a notice of intent. So that's the cost of that.
Sounds like it'd be cheaper to ask forgiveness.
$5,000 to be able to ask. Gotcha.
Any other questions? Make the motion to approve this project.
I'll abstain from the vote as the
Oh.
applicant.
Excellent.
I'll second that motion. So put it in front of town meeting.
Any other conversation? Take a vote. All those in favor? Approved, unanimous, 1 abstention.
Hey, good job.
I lost my paper. Oh, there it is. Too many papers. All right, Rebecca, you're up next.
Good evening. Thank you all for allowing me to be here this evening. So I have put forward an application for affordable housing and a home repair initiative. And one of the reasons that I put forward this application is because the Community Preservation Committee has been very vocal about the need to do more with our affordable housing monies and to push that initiative further. We have made some efforts in the past, and they have been unsuccessful, most notably, as the committee had discussed the buy-down program, and we had allocated about $409,000 to try and help make homes more affordable here in Groveland, and we were partnering with the Groveland Housing Authority. Unfortunately, as you're aware, due to the recent updates, we were not able to move forward with that program because the partnership was no longer valid, as the former director had left their position, and the new director did not think they had much capacity. So taking a closer look at the ways that we could be creative with our affordable housing initiatives, we came up with the following. So for the first part of this project is to look closer at the inclusionary housing bylaw. So as you all know, we have an inclusionary housing bylaw which allows for developers to either provide affordable housing units, or they can make a payment in lieu of that affordable unit based upon the amount of units that they're proposing and based upon the area median income, AMI, for this particular area at the time of the development. So the town has collected funds for the inclusionary housing bylaw and the payment in lieu of providing those units. But the money has been put into a trust fund, and the way that the bylaw is written is that the only organization or entity that's able to utilize those funds right now is the Groveland Housing Authority. So based upon the lack of access to these funds, it only seems appropriate to explore how the town can take advantage of these funds and do what was the intended use, which was to create affordable housing in Groveland. So one of them was to create potentially a Groveland Housing Affordable Trust, which would allow the trust to access the funds, or if there's a way that we can, again, work on our relationship with the Groveland Housing Authority and specifically partner with them or outside organizations that we could then partner with them in a more collaborative type of agreement, we could also access those funds. So the first part is to work with a consultant to identify ways that we can increase access to the affordable housing monies that have been set aside for affordable housing here in Groveland. The second part of the application is more so for the help for residents who are looking for upgrades to their home that meet affordable housing thresholds. So there's many other communities that have access to what they call community development block grant funds, which are CDBG funds, and that's from the federal government. And those programs allow for anywhere from window replacement, walkways, doors, and other types of repairs to a home if you are income eligible. So CPC is another way for smaller communities that do not have access to those funds to put those monies back into the community and help residents improve their homes, stay in their homes when they do not have enough monies coming in to do them themselves. So the second portion of this project is, again, to work with a consultant to develop a program, to model a program after something similar to what other communities do, utilizing CDBG funds and or other communities that have been able to capitalize on CPC funds for the housing improvement program for Groveland. So both of those projects would involve utilizing the same consultant. So we would like to move forward with asking for $20,000 for the proposal.
How much is in the inclusionary fund?
It's about $1 million.
Adam?
Yes.
I agree, I'd like to see this initiated. I'm the representative on this committee representing the housing. And I've been on the committee for a couple of years. And it's never been brought up that there's any sort of funds or anything available. And the person that's the chairperson has been running the show for years. I'm the new guy, and don't have a clue. And it's nothing in the mandatory training that I've gone through online. I just think that there's been some lack of communication with the existing housing authority.
We can turn that into an opportunity, because now that we are aware, we can now work with the Groveland Housing Authority, and we could even potentially identify many of the sites that are available, maybe potentially here in Groveland, that they could assume authority over, as they have other units that are not the units at the River Pines in the back there.
Yeah, we've got 3 other units.
And they could
One on Barris,
potentially.
One on Cannon Hill.
And so what they could do is that with our partnership with them, we could find another property for them to take on with the similar restrictions that they have for the other properties, but they would need to manage those. Because the biggest thing for us as a small community, and what you'll see, as you see as the Groveland Housing Authority, is that we don't have the capacity internally to manage the housing stock and to put forward affirmative fair marketing plans or lotteries or to monitor the units. It's not our business to be landlords and to maintain property of that nature. So we really need that third party. And for us, it's either the Groveland Housing Authority or working with an outside agency to help us do that. So this is a perfect opportunity to enhance that communication and to take that a step farther.
Yeah, well, presently, Groveland Housing Authority is under the auspices, if that's the correct word, of Haverhill Housing Authority, and for which we pay a monthly fee, but they've done a good job. But I wouldn't expect them to take on this. We just keep that doing what they're doing, but the existing housing authority needs some serious education.
And we really have worked really well with Clara, the new director, as well as Dania over there. They're
Yeah, no,
great.
Clara's not a problem,
They're fantastic, so it's great working with them.
okay?
Yes, Mike?
So this proposal, Rebecca, at the end, you're gonna end up with 2 reports.
Correct.
So then what's gonna happen? How are we gonna put these, let's say that, you know, it recommends that we put a housing trust together, right? What's gonna happen then? How are we gonna do that? Do we need more money to be able to set some of these things up? I mean, should we be thinking about that, not just getting reports? Because we've got reports in the past before, and they didn't really help.
That's a very good point.
I just
So
wanted to get through these.
as a planner, I think it's really important to have a foundation and to have a pathway forward. And a lot of the plans that we've had have stated that this is a strategy that we should pursue. It is not any document that we've had that has given us a, you should do A, B, C in order to move forward. And as part of this proposal, we're looking for an actual plan that says, in order to form an affordable housing trust, you must first identify A, you must first, reach out to the select board, you must go to town meeting, you must go through all these steps. You should allocate a certain amount of money towards the start of the trust, or what have you. So the whole intent of this report is not just, you should do an affordable housing trust so that you can utilize those funds. It's going to give you a how-to create such so that you can move forward. If in fact that's the way that the consultant, after reviewing all of those documents and talking with the town, feels as though is the best way or pathway forward. So it really is more of a how-to. And the same with the affordable repairs program, is that it will outline the structure, similar to what we did with the implementation plan for the home buy-down program, where we actually had an application that was included as part of it and what the process would be. The only failure with that was that, again, we didn't have that third party to help us over the finish line. So this report would be the same, where it would give us a how-to, what the application would look, what the income eligibility would look like, what projects would be eligible, and then also what type of vendors would we contract to, how would we do procurement to ensure that everybody was getting the right prices and that the money was getting spent correctly. So the first phase would be to identify that process. The second phase would be coming back before the CPC, asking for a separate allocation to carry that out based upon what the consultant comes up with a process moving forward. So hopefully, unlike some of the other plans that we do that really just kind of say, this is best management practices, or you should pursue this, this will really give you more of a step-by-step guide.
And this is a situation where there's cost savings because you're going to be doing 2 at once with one consultant.
Correct, and that's one of the thought processes as well, is because they have that intimate knowledge about what the ultimate long-term goals are of the community. They're already working with the community on affordable housing. They actually don't have to spend more time reading all those plans because they've already read them. So it's something that then can be applied.
What's the time frame to turn it around?
We believe we can get it done within the year, if not sooner, meaning if we were awarded funds as of July 1.
Can you get it done in 6 months?
The goal would be to get it done sooner so that we could proceed with the second phase if in fact it warranted such.
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Yep.
Thank you all, I appreciate it.
Appreciate you, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Adam,
Yes, sir.
I hate to say this, but I still gotta go to Beverly and go to work.
All right, sir.
Split last time.
God.
Maybe people choose one.
That took way longer than I thought it was gonna, so.
No, you may not. I will not, I veto it.
Discussion of vice CPC chair position.
Mr. Chair, do we make a motion to table this until we have a full board present?
Yes, we made that same motion last month, too. I'll second that motion.
All right.
All those in favor?
No discussion required. Fantastic.
All right, discussion on veto project.
Ed said he was gonna fix it himself.
Love it.
Claire left, Mike, do you know
Oh,
where she stood on that? Was she able to get any of the things we asked for? I feel like I know the answer.
I don't know. Ed, do you know where it's at? The veto thing?
Yes, well, partly. There was a committee formed after some delay, and they're working on the project.
Okay.
So it would be nice to do an extension, and let them finish the work. I've already looked at additional signage, and I looked at the cost of that. So it's moving forward, but it's not fast.
So,
I'd like to see an extension on it.
okay, so rather than canceling the other one, we just put a new warrant in to extend because it expired, we want to extend it for a
All right,
year or
I'll
two.
let Claire know that. I know she did she didn't do the original. but-
At the last meeting, I gave her all the drawings and everything of what that project was supposed to be, which it's nowhere near close to being done. And she was gonna do research to see if she could get it done for the appropriate amount of money that was already approved for that project. Which, just by looking at the quotes and everything, and I'll just stay in my lane electrically wise, you couldn't even buy the parts for the money that was quoted electrically wise. And to me, if the town voted we paid an architect to do wonderful drawings, if we're not gonna build what the architect drew, and we're just gonna, slap something together till we run out of money, I'm not okay with that.
Well, it's a worthwhile project. It just, we had a problem with the original architect where he moved, and there was just a delay, and it was turned over to Historical Society to continue the project, and so Claire has resurrected the committee, and they are working on it.
I don't think anyone disagrees that it's a worthwhile project. I think we all think it's something that should get done. What I think the chair and I share this. My consternation is that it's a situation where we asked for additional information, we didn't get it. It's a project that doesn't look like what it was designed to be, and what probably should happen is it should get resubmitted for 2026 in a way that is complete and comprehensive and something that we can really actually get across the finish line. And between now and the end of the year, the people who are really in support of it could marshal together a really good plan to get right at it. But right now, like you said, the movement's very slow. I would rather see a pause and then a re-proposal where the numbers are realistic and where we could actually get it done. So I would vote to close it and then make a recommendation that somebody resubmit for 2026.
I don't think that we have jurisdiction over this. I think that it's up to the Board of Selectmen to decide to allow a warrant article to extend a project that was voted at town meeting. We only get to approve or deny projects that come forward to us. We really don't have any vehicle to talk about extending projects. That's up to town meeting. So it really is, doesn't really matter what we think. What matters is town meeting. It's already gone beyond us. It's in the hands of town meeting. And the only way that that will be decided is if the select board says, yes, we want to put a warrant article together that extends this or not. So, I don't think that we have anything to say about it.
I tend to disagree with you, only, 2 months ago, we just closed out 10 other expired projects. What's stopping us from closing this one out was giving Claire the chance to do the due diligence to see if the project could be done. And I submit that she's failed to do that, and I kind of am with Patrick on this, that we should close it. I support the project, I'd love to see it go forward, but again, I don't want to it's not even close to enough money, and I don't want to get a half a project till we run out of money. I would rather get the museum quality display that it's supposed to be and that it deserves. Any other comments? I'm going to make the motion to close account 2404-122-52-123-52 and return the amount of $52,825 to the general fund.
I'll second that.
The only comment I would have is that I would strongly support the resubmission of that with the updated funding to account for it, because
That's what
obviously
I-
I'm in favor of the project, but I think it's out of date now, and it might need to be, just have it updated.
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
So, once again, I don't think that, first of all, we received legal opinion that there could be no extension, no termination dates on projects, that they were basically not necessary, didn't need to be on there. That was after when Rebecca looked into it with town council. And so we assumed, the CPC formally assumed then, that no project that had an expiration date had to be voted on again or whatever. Then we received conflicting advice by a second town council, different town council, that somehow, and I'm not even sure what exactly it meant, but that maybe it needed to be voted on again, or it could be voted on again by annual town meeting to extend it. But I really don't think we ever received any legal opinion that we can end a project. And so, yes, we did vote to close those projects out, but I think we did it with the approval and agreement of the project managers, myself being one, on closing some of them out. But I don't think that vote was necessary, and I don't think this vote has any, we can vote it, we can say it's closed, but I don't think that it's a valid vote.
So it would need to go on the town warrant.
Rebecca, would you like to weigh in on this, since we blessed with your presence this evening?
Thanks for hanging around.
So I'm not aware of the original legal opinion that Mike is referring to. Upon guidance from the board, you had asked whether or not that had any bearing on the application or the application of funding for projects that had an expiration date when you were going through everything. So I said to town council, we have certain warrant articles that have expiration dates tied to the warrant article. And they stated that with the expiration date as written, that you could not extend it without going to a vote at town meeting. You could extend it if you wanted to, if the language did say that after June 30th, 2024, the CPC may extend the deadline with good cause or with cause or something to that effect. council advised that you could do that, but that would mean that the language had to state that. And if the language did not have an expiration date, then my understanding from what council stated is that that's correct. There is no expiration date. But when a project has a specific expiration date as listed in the warrant article, it is only an act of town meeting that would be able to extend that beyond. So that would mean that you would need to have a town meeting warrant article that asks to extend that expiration date if you wanted to utilize the monies. Otherwise, that money cannot be used, it cannot be touched, and will not be spent.
And can the CPC make that recommendation or make that proposal for town meeting to extend a project?
They could be a part of that conversation. I do think that, it is something that we could run by council, again, as to clarity as to where it needs to stem from. I think that, to Mike's point, it's really important to be mindful that there's project applicants that are very involved, and there's project applicants that, even that are involved and just can't make the project move forward. A point in case when I just said the buy-down program, couldn't make it work. I wasn't just gonna let that money sit there and come up with some other use or come up with something similar to the use of what I proposed. I said, listen, I'll put that money back into the general fund, into the general bucket, and if I come up with a different program, I'll come up with an application and come before the CPC, and I'll put that forward. So I think that's the biggest issue here, is that if the plan doesn't resemble what was put forward at town meeting, does that mean that it should be a new application, or does it mean that we should get, again, council's approval as to whether or not Claire has to be the one as the project manager or applicant, even though I believe it was the Firefighters Association that was the original applicant, to extend that initial allocation and project further. So I can get clarification if the board would like, but I would imagine that it might be more of a general conversation and not necessarily a specific vote of the board as to whether or not that you would be able to move forward with asking for an extension.
So, what you're saying is, we can't extend it. Town meeting has to extend it.
That's
right?
correct. The town meeting has to, the
Yes.
legislative body, to do so.
Yes, but can we kill it?
If there's no project applicant that's putting forward a proposal to move forward, I would imagine it's up for conversation. But as I just mentioned, I would need to confirm with council as to whether or not where that stems from the extension, the project applicant, or as you pointed out, would it have to be an act of the select board?
So, and then after receiving the advice from council, that might mean we would have to go back to all those things we killed under the belief that we could do so and maybe unkill them, and, right?
Well, they did state that you can close a project, so it's more on whether or not you would be able to put forward the extension.
So,
I have no interest in putting forward the extension as a board. I mean, that's up to an applicant. We're not gonna drive the project, we're not gonna build it.
We don't need to do that.
well, and I think we're kind of moving in the other direction about this, wanting to close that project based on the reasons that we've discussed. Not that we're against the project in concept, but the way that it's coming out, the way it's been planned.
Yeah.
But the project must be in line with what was presented to the CPC, because that was the original proposal that was approved by the CPC that got the project on the warrant to begin with.
And because it's now expired and now not in compliance with that, you think that we don't have to wait for council to say that we can close it?
I'm gonna say we add this to the pot, we'll take a vote, and if it dies, we add it to the rest of them, and we can certainly see.
If council says something else, we can always
We can
amend.
always undo
Right.
or amend, but I don't wanna drag it out another month. I mean, this thing's been on here for 4 months now,
I agree.
so if there's any more
Yeah, but-
discussion?
But we can also we can wait, there's no reason to do it tonight necessarily. It's not they're not spending money, they don't have any plan to spend money.
Well, tonight's the night that we're voting on things for the 2025 town warrant.
Just to clean up the housekeeping.
Yeah.
I think we all know the answer, that the project can't be built for the money that's there.
Thank you.
I just think, I would make a motion to table this.
I'll second the motion to table.
All right, well, so
You gotta
we
take a
got,
vote.
we got two motions, so we got,
Well, don't we have to resolve the first one first?
I would imagine, yeah.
Motion to table takes precedent.
Does it?
Yeah.
All right. All right, all those in favor of tabling? All right, you have it.
Almost there.
All right, moving on, discussion on CPA plan. I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to table this till the next meeting.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Unanimous, great.
Update from town administrator. You wanna, I never got the things you printed out. I'm sorry. It was hectic. Cliff
Okay,
notes.
I don't have the memo in front of me, but we did receive updates, so I'm not sure if, I know one of the project applicants is here, if Mike would like to go through his, and I can print out that memo, because it does give you the financial update for each individual project, so that you can have that before you, if that is so the chair may.
That'd be perfect.
Okay.
Appreciate you.
My wife is here too, so she can do it.
Perfect.
We're knocking them off now. Huh?
Getting something done. Totally ill-prepared.
Okay, so the update on the new Mill Pond Phase 1 cleanup and land survey. The town has got quotes on doing a land survey, and I am working with the town administrator to try to get that done the next month or two. As far as the Crosstown Recreation Trail, I'm working with the town administrator to hire a consultant to direct us in a trail design for the Crosstown Recreation Trail. No funds have been expended on that project. And then for the planting and preserving of tree project, this month, a sign company who the Conservation Commission had pursued 3 bids, 3 estimates on hiring a company to put together a new sign for VZ Park along Washington Street that was in the budget. And so that was approved, and we paid $300 to start the design of that sign. And we also hired a landscaping company to do some additional cutting, mulching, and clearing of brush along the Washington Street buffer area there along Washington Street.
2 questions for you real quick,
Sure.
if you'll indulge me.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Crosstown Recreational Trail, is that included in this year's trail proposal too?
No,
That's one of them, or no?
no, it's not.
Okay,
It doesn't exist. This is a new trail.
gotcha. All right, and then planting and preserving historic trees.
Yes.
Explain to me how a sign for VZ Park is historic.
That sign is part of the budget, was in the budget as a one particular thing that was approved. There were other things in that weren't necessarily trees.
No, I agree, but I mean, we did it under the guise of historic preservation, and we're calling a new sign for VZ Park historic preservation. I just argue that it doesn't fit. I mean, this may be too late, but we haven't spent the money yet. And then to follow up on that, whatever came of the elm park trees?
We're working with the town highway department to address those. That's kind of in there. They've got $14,000 of this grant is to go to addressing a plan for the elm park trees.
Thank you.
Okay.
Jim, would you like to give an update on the garden? Mike said you might like to.
Oh, for just this month?
Sure,
Well, just,
how about a brief overview of how it's going?
well, it's going well, as you've seen from my other updates. Right this past month, we've been doing publicity. So we have posters up in various places in town, encouraging folks to get on board with some of our, getting more feedback as we're doing this plan, this feasibility plan. We're also we also put it on Groveland Community News, which aired, at the last
Which
program.
repeats on Channel 22
Yep,
ad nauseum,
so we've added that.
YouTube.
and YouTube on Groveland.tv.
And Kurt and I were down at the dog park, the old dog park, the other day, doing measuring and testing out some metal raised beds and figuring out how many plots we were going to try to have in the plan. So it's moving along, progressing.
So we're still in the planning phases?
That's all this grant is for, is a plan.
Have you reached out on social media at all to get some input from the town?
I haven't reached out I don't do Facebook. So maybe the town can put it out. I can have Rebecca or somebody.
It might be,
Yep.
seems to be where a lot of people hang
Yep,
out. Facts.
right.
Is that too much information to put on the sign out front, the electronic sign?
It might be too much
Yeah.
information, but we could condense it and lead them to the project site.
Well, basically, right now, it's been out there, and we're just looking for people who are interested and want to have some input and ideas about the location and, how they would envision it. So that, we'd like to have that as part of, our feasibility study.
Absolutely.
I've also spoken with a reporter from the Eagle Tribune who's doing a story on it as well. And that was during the past month. So we're making progress, hoping soon to have the feasibility study done within the next few months.
Excellent.
And that's the end of the project.
The article came out today.
Oh, good. Good. Good to know. Any other questions? I wasn't planning on speaking.
Thank you, appreciate it.
You're welcome. Anytime.
If I can ever get someone to speak so I don't have to, I'm gonna do it. Rebecca, any of these other ones have any big movement that we need to talk about, or are they pretty much status quo?
Pretty much status quo, I would say the biggest in terms, everything's pretty much status quo, as you can see from the memo. The only thing I would say from an expenditure standpoint that had a larger expenditure as of 2/1/25 is for the Shanahan parking, which was $146,122. And that was in regards to the pay requisition that was submitted to the contractor for the initial work, as well as some of the work that they also did at the Pines. There is the grading and the drainage structures, as you'll see in the field report that they had done, even considering the weather. And there was some additional efforts by the engineer to come out and to review those, as they are the construction monitor for the project. So that was the heavy expenditure for that particular project. But otherwise, as you stated, everything is pretty status quo.
All right.
Is the engineer TEC or our town engineer?
Yes, correct.
TEC.
TEC is doing the construction monitoring, and they did the design plans. I will say the only other thing that's not interesting, but a little challenging and tricky with this project is because we bundled them with the contractor, it's a little hard to put them separately towards the allocation. So the construction monitoring for each is being billed each to the actual line item. So like if it's for Shanahan and TEC goes out and views it, we get an invoice, we put it to the Shanahan account. If it's for the Pines, we put it to the Pines account. When a pay requisition comes in from a contractor, it's a very large document, so it has estimates and quantities that were a part of the bid document, so it then starts to draw down within. So it gets a little tricky to say which one is Shanahan and which one is the Pines. So that has been the struggle there. We are still under. There was a small change order of, I believe, about $2,000 that came in so far in regards to, on the plan, there was a drainage structure shown, and when they went out into the field, the drainage structure wasn't there. So we had to make some alterations so that we could make sure that we had the tie-in that was necessary. So there's nothing that's making the project so far go above what we had estimated or what the bid had come in as. So we're still looking at coming in far below. But essentially what I'm saying is that the expenditure might be a little high on the Shanahan side because we're taking it from that account first as we draw that down. But we are being mindful, and we can go back to the estimates and track it. It's just a little bit more complicated and time consuming.
Excellent. Thank you. The other thing, Claire had mentioned, she was here earlier, that she received a letter on the Washington Hall National Registry from the state saying that they
Yes.
approved it.
I can
Oh,
speak to that.
please.
Yeah, actually, we just got the email today.
Yeah. So
Kept haunting them, and we got it.
now we're ready for the next step, which
Yes,
is,
we have to hire a consultant to write the report.
and that's included in your funding?
That's
That's
basically.
basically what the funding was for?
That's it.
It's nice to see it move.
Yeah, we were so excited.
All right, now we're up to set the date for the next meeting.
Just like that.
How do we feel about March 10th?
Sounds great. That works for me.
Works for me, I think.
Same times?
6:30 PM?
No site visit this time.
No site visit. That was fun, though.
It was, I was gonna say, we could have another field trip.
My wife will kill me. I haven't been home in ages. All right, done there. Next on the agenda, approval of minutes from the 12/16/24 meeting.
If you read them over, they look to be in order, and we'll move from that.
Second.
I abstain. I was absent.
All right,
I second the 12/16 meeting minutes for approval.
we take a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the 1/13/2024 meeting as well.
Second.
Take a vote on those. All those in favor? Perfect. All right, other items not reasonably anticipated at time of posting. Ed?
I have nothing.
Elaine?
Nothing.
I've got nothing. Mike?
No.
Linda?
Nothing.
DJ?
Yes.
Nothing.
Patrick?
None.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned, 8:45 PM.
Good work.